We figured out the office wasn't the career. The career was whatever we built regardless of the office. Once we figured that out, everything else got easier and harder, both at the same time. That is the honest version. I want to talk about what we are building, not in the hustle bro sense, not in the side hustle to retire at 30 sense. I am not selling a course. I do not have a course. I'm talking about a quieter thing. The thing a lot of us have started doing in the last 5 years, almost without coordinating, where we slowly disconnect our sense of who we are professionally from the company that issues our paychecks, where we start building a thing, sometimes inside the job, sometimes outside it, sometimes as a freelance practice, sometimes as a quiet portfolio, sometimes as a network of people we can call when we need to leave. That exists independent of the corporate ladder we were told to climb. This is happening across both our generations. The 31-year-old who took the corporate job for the health insurance but spends evenings building the freelance practice that will let her leave it. The 27-year-old who never got the corporate job at all because he watched older cousins try to climb and saw the result. The 38-year-old who got laid off, took the severance, used the time to build the thing he had been wanting to build, and is now 12 months in and not going back. The 42-year-old who still has a corporate job but has stopped pretending it is her identity, who is putting money into something else on the side, slowly, patiently, building a parachute she may or may not use. These are not separate phenomena. These are the same phenomenon at different points of completion. We are doing it together without knowing we are doing it together. I want to talk honestly about what it is, not because I think everyone should do it. A lot of us cannot, for reasons I will get into. But because the people who are doing it deserve language for what they are doing, and the people who are considering it deserve an honest picture of what it actually is. The corporate world has 1 million books, podcasts, and seminars describing the climb. The outside the climb life has almost no honest accounting because the only people writing about it are either selling you something or warning you against it. I want to do something in between. Just describe it. Let you decide. The first thing I want to say is that going independent or going semi-independent, or building a parachute, or whatever shape your version of this takes, is not a rejection of work. It is the opposite. It is the most committed relationship with work most of us have ever had. We worked harder in the first 2 years of building something independent than we ever worked at a salaried job. The work was different, less mandatory, more directly tied to outcomes we could see. But it was more, not less. Anyone who tells you the freelance life is about working less is selling you something. We are not working less. We are working in a different shape. The second thing, and this is the honest part the hustle bros leave out, is that the early years are financially worse than the salaried version. Significantly. We took pay cuts to leave. We took the health insurance hit. We took the variable income. We took the months where the math did not close and we ate into savings. We took the awkwardness of telling family at Thanksgiving that we are freelance or consulting or between things when an uncle asked what we did for a living. We took all of that on purpose because the salaried version was producing a slower version of the same financial precarity with the added cost of pretending the company cared about us. The salaried precarity was hidden behind a logo and a benefits package. The independent precarity was visible. Both were precarious. We picked the visible one because at least we could see it and respond to it. The third thing, and this is the part the doomed content leaves out, is that the visible precarity after a few years mostly becomes legible. You learn what your income actually looks like over 12 months. You learn what your costs are. You learn how to plan against the variance. You learn what your clients or buyers or audience actually want. The fog of the first 2 years thins. Year 3 is usually the year where the math starts to close more reliably than it has ever closed at the salaried job, because now we are charging market rates for our actual labor rather than collecting a salary that was designed to pay us less than the value we produced. We were never paid what we were worth at the salaried job. The wage was designed to capture the gap between our output and our pay. That gap was their margin. Now it's ours. I want to be specific about who can do this and who cannot, because I do not want to write a pep talk that ignores the condition. The people who can do this most easily are people with marketable skills, no dependents, no chronic health conditions, and some savings or family support. The people for whom this is harder are people with kids, who need stable health insurance, people with health conditions that require coverage continuity, people whose families need every dollar of income predictably. People in fields with high credentialing requirements that lock the work inside institutions, and people who do not have any savings runway at all. I'm not pretending this is universally accessible. It is not. Material conditions matter, and I'm not going to pretend they do not. What I will say is that the range of people who can do this is wider than most people initially assume. The 28-year-old who thinks they cannot afford to leave their current job often can. They've just been trained to overweight the risk of leaving and underweight the risk of staying. The 35-year-old with one kid who thinks they need the corporate health plan can often get a similar plan on the exchange for less than they thought once they actually price it out. The freelancer who thinks they cannot survive without the salary often discovers that the salary was paying for the stress of the job itself. And once the stress is gone, the costs come down too. The risks are not what we think. The risks are also not zero. The honest thing is to actually run the numbers yourself rather than operate on the inherited assumption that leaving is impossible. If you run the numbers and the answer is genuinely, I cannot leave, this is a real answer. You should not feel inadequate about it. The system was designed to make leaving feel impossible. The fact that you are inside the design is not your failing. The fact that you are running the numbers honestly is the work. Here's what we are claiming. The stances. The decisions we've made about what work means now and what we are building outside the corporate ladder instead of climbing it. Some of these I have claimed. Some of them my friends have claimed. All of them are in circulation among the people doing this. I want to put them on the record. Stances we are adopting. We build outside the corporate ladder before we are forced to. We treat our skills like the actual asset. The job is just one place to deploy them. We don't ask permission to start. We start. The company can decide what to do about it. We don't pretend the salary is the ceiling. The ceiling is what we build outside of it. We don't measure success by title. We measure it by optionality. We don't give the corporate identity space inside our own head it didn't earn. We don't romanticize the freelance struggle. We respect the math of it and plan against the variance. We network sideways with other refusers instead of upward toward the people we used to envy. We don't apologize at family dinners for choosing a path the older generation cannot recognize. 9 stances, each one small. Each one a decision we made on purpose. I want to deep dive a few of them because I think they need their own paragraphs. The second one. We treat our skills like the actual asset. The job is just one place to deploy them. Is a foundational shift. The corporate framing of work treats the job as the asset and you as the labor. The job is the thing that has value. You provide labor to it in exchange for a wage. That framing was useful in 1965 when jobs lasted 30 years and produced pensions. It is no longer useful when the average job tenure is under 5 years and most companies will not invest in your development. The new framing is the opposite. Your skills are the asset. They are durable. They follow you across jobs, across industries, across decades. The job is one location where the skills can be deployed for compensation. There may be others. There may be better ones. There may be ways to deploy the same skills directly to clients without an employer taking the margin. Once you start thinking this way, a lot of decisions become easier. The job stops being a thing you cling to. It becomes a thing you evaluate. Does it deploy your skills well? Does it pay you fairly for the deployment? Is it building or eroding your future development options? If yes, stay. If no, go. The clinging is over because the clinging was based on a framing that no longer matches reality. The third one, we don't ask permission to start, is the one a lot of us got wrong for a long time. I got it wrong for years. I had ideas for things I wanted to build, and I sat on them because I was waiting for some moment of certainty that would make it the right time to start. I was waiting for permission. From whom, I could not have said. The market? The boss? Some internal authority figure I'd been carrying since childhood? Some imagined future me who would know it when I was time? No, none of them existed. The permission was never coming because no one was empowered to give it. We learned eventually that you just start. You start before you are ready. You start with a bad version of the thing. You release the first version. You get the first feedback. You make the second version. You learn by shipping. The companies we work for would never let us learn this way. Every project at a corporate job is supposed to be perfect on launch because the launch is a political event, not a learning event. Outside the corporate ladder, the launch is the learning event. We launched, we learned, we're still learning. The willingness to start before we were ready is the single largest difference between the people who built something outside the corporate ladder and the people who kept waiting for the right time. There is no right time. There is only starting. The sixth one. We don't give the corporate identity space inside our own head it didn't earn. It is the psychological work most of us did not realize was the work. For most of our adult lives, our sense of self was partially constructed by the company we worked for. The title was part of who we were, the team we managed, the projects we shipped, the relationships with the people in the building. The vague identification of I work at X as a piece of identity. We perform that identity at parties, at family events, in dating, in casual introductions. The company name was a credential we carried into rooms. The credential was always thinner than we treated it. When we left those jobs, the credential evaporated within months. The people we had worked closely with for years mostly stopped responding to texts. The brand we had identified with did not identify with us in return. It identified with whoever currently occupied our chair. The whole edifice of professional identity, when you actually leave a job, turns out to have been about 90% imagined. The job did not love us back. It could not. It was a job. It was a transaction. We had been treating it like a relationship, and we were surprised when the relationship turned out to have been one-directional. We stopped doing that. We took the corporate identity, the brand affiliation, the title, the team, and we resized them inside our heads to the actual space they should occupy. They are roles we play for money during certain hours. They are not who we are. Who we are is the person under the role, the person who has the skills, the relationships outside work, the interests, the values, the version of life that we are currently building. The job is what we do for income. It is not what we are. Once you make that shift internally, leaving any specific job becomes much easier, because the leaving is no longer a loss of identity. It is a change in revenue source, different magnitudes. We were treating one as the other. The corporate identity was about 90% imagined. The day you leave, you discover who actually loved you and who was just performing colleague. The number is smaller than you think. The number is also enough. I want to talk about what changes when you actually adopt these stances. Not in a manifest your dream life way. In a small, accurate, observable way. The way you read job postings changes. You stop scrolling LinkedIn looking for a job. You start scrolling LinkedIn evaluating whether any of these places are worth deploying your skills into for a season. Most of them are not. Some of them aren't even actual jobs. The ones that are worth it, you can evaluate honestly. The compensation, the actual work, the actual people, the realistic trajectory. You apply to fewer jobs. You apply better. You take fewer of them, but the ones you take serve you instead of trapping you. The way you handle a bad meeting changes. The meeting where the executive says something that does not make sense, that everyone in the room knows does not make sense, that everyone is going to nod through anyway because the executive said it. You stop performing the agreement. You can be polite. You do not have to be enthusiastic. The executive does not own your enthusiasm anymore because the executive does not own your career anymore. The performance was the thing they were buying without paying for it. We stopped giving it away. The way you handle a slow Friday changes. The Friday at 3 p.m. where there is nothing urgent and the corporate version of you would have manufactured tasks to look busy, sent a few performative emails, attended an optional meeting just to be visible. You stop doing that. You either do real work or you log off, or you work on the thing that you're building outside the job. The performative busyness is a tax the corporate world charged on your attention. We're not paying it anymore. They have not figured out yet that we are not paying it. They will. By the time they do, we will have built enough outside the job that the cost of replacing us will be more than they can absorb. The way you handle the family dinner changes. The relative who asks what you do for a living, the one who needs a clean answer that they can understand, the one who's going to be disappointed if the answer is freelance or consulting or have a few things going. You stop apologizing for the answer. You give it plainly. You let them sit with the discomfort if there is any. You do not perform success for them. You do not pretend the corporate job was less precarious than what you are doing now. The discomfort is theirs. They can hold it. We are not in the business of managing the older generation's discomfort about a path they did not take. And the way you handle the conversation with another person doing the same thing changes. When you meet someone who is also building outside the ladder, at a wedding, in a coffee shop, wherever it happens, there is a recognition, a you too energy. We've spent our lives being told we are alone in this path. We are not alone in it. Each one of us doing it knows 3 or 4 others doing it. The network of us is bigger than the network of climbers by a wide margin. But the network of climbers gets all the visibility because they are inside the building and we are not. We are starting to see each other. We are starting to send each other clients, opportunities, ideas, and support. The network of refusers is not a network in the LinkedIn sense. It is a network in the original sense. People who actually know each other and actually help each other. I want to address the older millennials specifically, because we are the ones for whom this shift has been the hardest. Gen Z, you will not need most of this. You grew up watching us flounder, and you've started further along in the curve. But the older millennials need this said out loud, because we are the generation that was mostly thoroughly trained to expect the corporate climb to work. And we are the generation that most needs to grieve that it did not. If you spent your 20s and early 30s grinding inside a corporate job that promised something it did not deliver, I see you. The grief about the lost years is real. The shame about having believed the pitch is real. The exhaustion is real. The not knowing what comes next is real. None of those feelings is a verdict on you. They are accurate responses to a betrayal that was perpetuated at scale on our entire cohort by an institutional system that needed us to keep believing for as long as it took to extract our productive years. The system needed us to believe, and we believed. The system used that belief. We are tired, and the belief is gone. That is not a failure, that is data. Now we get to decide what to build with the years we have left. Most of us have 30 or 40 good working years ahead of us. That is a long time. That is more than enough time to build something that exists outside the system that betrayed us. We do not need to retire at 65 inside a corporate org chart. We can build something different. We can have several different shapes of working life across the decades. We can take the skills we developed inside the corporate machine, most of which are genuinely valuable, even if the wage we got for them was not, and deploy them in arrangements we actually choose. And Gen Z, since I've been talking about you for most of this, you have the advantage of not having to unlearn. You walked into a country where the corporate climb was already broken. You have skepticism about it that took us a decade of disappointment to develop. That skepticism is an asset. Hold on to it. Do not let older managers gaslight it out of you. Their authority comes from a context that no longer exists. Your skepticism comes from the context that does exist. The skepticism is the more accurate position. Last thing, because I want to land this honestly rather than triumphant, going independent or building outside the corporate ladder or whatever shape your version takes is not freedom in some abstract Instagram sense. It is a different set of constraints, different anxieties, different problems. The corporate job had bosses you reported to. The independent life has clients who can be just as demanding. The corporate job had benefits that you didn't have to think about. The independent life requires you to think about every benefit you want to have. The corporate job let you blame the system when things went wrong. The independent life forces you to look in the mirror more often than is comfortable. What it offers, in exchange for those trade-offs, is the thing the corporate job stopped offering somewhere around 2008. A real relationship between your work and your life. The work directly produces outcomes you can see. The income directly reflects the value you produce. The clients are people you actually talk to. The mistakes are yours to learn from, rather than absorbed by an org chart. The wins are yours to keep, rather than passed up to the executives who did not produce them. The trade is real. The trade is honest. The trade is what we have decided is worth it. We chose this, not because the salaried world betrayed us, though it did, because we want our working life to be ours, not their property, not their margin, not their identity. Ours. If you are watching this and considering it, I'm not telling you to do it. I am telling you that a lot of us are doing it, that it is harder and better than the people on both sides describe, and that the door is open. You do not have to ask anyone for permission to walk through. You just walk. We will be on the other side. We are saving you a chair. We stopped climbing. We started building. We are not free. We are ours. The chair is open.